Hello, everybody, and welcome to 38 Weeks to Go, your weekly podcast about fantasy football. I am your host, Nash, and let's get into it. Game week 25 is done. And how was the game week for you? With an average of 58, did you do better than that? I got 71, so my free fall might be officially over. So let's look at the game week and let's see what led to 58 is relatively good. So let's see what led to that. Obviously, the first thing that you know is that Haaland scored, and when Haaland scores, the game week average is great. The next thing that happened is that Arsenal kept a clean sheet. When Arsenal keeps a clean sheet, their weekend is also good. Man United continue their winning streak, and as long as you have a variation of Cunha, Fernandes, and Bumo, you're doing well. If you've hung on to Rodgers, then Rodgers has kept you going. If you're one of the wise ones and took a chance on catching Summeville's run, well done. He's done it again. 5th game in a row, I think now. If you have Igor Thiago, he did the business. Not a great game, but he scored. Bruno Guimaraes scored again. If you have Cole Palmer, you lucky person. And if you captained him, even better. And if you triple captained him, well, you are the real risk taker. And then, of course, if you trusted in Dominic Calvert-Lewin, he did not let you down. If you have João Pedro, he suddenly has 2 assists. And he was... those silly fouls that Wolves gave. You can see why they are where they are. Somehow Gyökeres scores 2 goals after coming on as a sub. It's wild. Dango Ouattara was really impressive. Szoboszlai scored again, but then got a red card. If you're one of those people who had Cherki, I am so sorry. That was painful. That was so painful. The highest scoring game of the game week was Newcastle 2, Brentford 3. Newcastle started the game off really well with a great header by Botman. And I thought, okay, doesn't look bad. And then Janelt scored. And then all of a sudden there was a penalty. And Thiago scored the penalty. And the game goes on and it looks like Brentford after it looked like they were not going to get anything. And then a penalty is given to Newcastle. Bruno Guimaraes scores it. And then almost out of nothing, Ouattara scores a really good goal. And that's just how it ends. So what ends up happening? Janelt gets the 3-point because he did great. Jensen had 2 assists. Ouattara had 1. Bruno Guimaraes had an assist. So Janelt gets the 3 bonus points. Ouattara gets 2 and Bruno Guimaraes gets 1. It was an entertaining game, and that's how it ended. There was no real disappointing game this week, unless of course you're an Arsenal fan and you wanted Liverpool to win. But outside that, I think the results made sense. Maybe the only questionable one might have been Fulham Everton, where it could have gone either way, or maybe Leeds Nottingham Forest. But to call them disappointing would be a bit of a stretch. Liverpool 1. Man City 2 was the marquee game. And before this game, I honestly thought it was going to be Liverpool's. Haaland had a poor record at Anfield. He had not scored for Manchester City there. And then guess what? This is the time that he scores there. Liverpool take the lead with a beautiful free kick from Szoboszlai. It had remnants of the Arsenal-Liverpool game earlier on in the season. And honestly, at that point, I thought it was done. And then suddenly, there's a headed pass from Haaland who puts Bernardo Silva clear, and he just sort of toe pokes it in, and we're at 1-1. And then there's a penalty which for me felt like it came out of nowhere, but I knew Haaland was going to take it, and I was like, oh, thank God, this is the only way I felt like Haaland could score if he was to score in this game. And then he scores it. Liverpool throw everything at Man City to be able to score, which includes putting the goalkeeper up front. So then what happens? They get a break. Cherki sort of rolls the ball in from half pitch. That time Haaland is trying to take it so that he can actually score a goal. So Szoboszlai pulls him back, and then in return Haaland pulls him back, but none of them really interfere with the goal. And I don't know about you guys, but I felt like that goal should have been allowed. I felt like what Haaland and Szoboszlai did cancelled each other out, and just for the spirit of the game, it should have been allowed to stand. I don't think people would have complained. But VAR is VAR, and what they did was they called the initial foul on Haaland by Szoboszlai a last man foul. He gets a red card, and the game kind of ends. And even though Man City are happy to win, it didn't feel like a victory. I mean, it felt like a victory, but the joy wasn't there as it could have been. It was an entertaining game. I thought Liverpool created the better chances, but they just didn't take them. Haaland and Matías Nunes had the assists for Man City. Gravenberch had the assists for Liverpool. Haaland had the 3 bonus points. Szoboszlai had 2, and Bernardo Silva had 1. When it comes to round points, in goal, Hermansen had 10 points. Henderson, 8. Raya, 7. Martinez, 6. Lamens, 6. When it comes to defense, Dalot had 12. Lacroix, 11. Diouf, 9. Richards, 8. Bogle, Mavropanos, Wan-Bissaka, 8 points apiece. And I just want you guys to know this. Justin and Hill from Bournemouth are both 3.9, and they both got clean sheets. Or rather points from defense, because Leeds got considered a goal. And so did Bournemouth, but they both had assists. When it comes to midfield, it is clear. When you have a hat-trick, you are the top player of the week. Palmer had a hat-trick, 20 points. Dewsbury Hall, 13. Ouattara, 12. Gruev, Bruno Guimaraes. Summeville, 11 points apiece. Zubimendi, Rogers, and Bruno Fernandes each had 10 points. When it comes to forwards, Gyökeres had 12. Haaland, 11. João Pedro and Tolu, 8. Calvert-Lewin in 5th place with 7 points. Let's look at some stats generated from this past game week. Palmer scores a hat-trick for Chelsea. With it, he becomes the first player to register 3 first-half hat-tricks in the competition's history. He also became Chelsea's club record scorer of hat-tricks, with this being his 4th. So he's out and by himself as Chelsea's leading hat-trick scorer with 4 hat-tricks in the Premier League era. Bruno Fernandes is having a quietly good season. He has reached 200 goal involvements for Manchester United, and he has done this in 314 appearances. And in doing so, he has achieved this feat quicker than Cristiano Ronaldo and Ryan Giggs. Only Wayne Rooney has racked up 200 goal involvements for Manchester United in fewer matches than Fernandes. So he's definitely going down as a legend. Liverpool were leading 1-0 up to the 83rd minute and then went on to lose 2-1. It is the latest they have ever led in a Premier League game at Anfield to go on to lose. That's Manchester City stealing victory from the jaws of defeat. In his 4th attempt at Anfield, Haaland finally netted his first goal there in the competition, and he has now scored at 23 of the 24 grounds he has played at in the competition, failing to score at the Stadium of Light. Liverpool have conceded 4 90th minute winners in league matches this season, already the joint most by a team in a single Premier League campaign. The others are Watford in 17-18, West Ham in 21-22, Watford in 21-22, and Southampton in 24-25. So they need to play for like all of the minutes instead of collapsing at the end. At 92-42, Haaland's penalty is the latest winning goal on record by a visiting team at Anfield. And had they allowed Cherki's goal to stand, that would have been the latest. Szoboszlai has scored 4 direct free kicks in all competitions this season, the single most by a Liverpool player since 2012-2013 when Suarez scored 5. Ismaila Sarr has now scored 3 goals away at Brighton in the Premier League, and he has scored there than he has scored any other Premier League away side. Against Sunderland, Gyökeres had 2 touches inside the opposition box, 2 completed passes, 2 shots, and 2 goals. What a performance. Since January, no Premier League player has scored more goals in all competitions than Victor Gyökeres has done. New year, new him. Since making his debut in 2021, Romero has been sent off 6 times. Oh yeah, that's the thing I forgot to say. If you had Romero, I am so sorry. Daniel Farke has now won 7 matches as Leeds head coach, and it is one more than he won in the 49 matches as Norwich manager. He has learned finally. Well done to him. And to build on that, Leeds have earned 76% of their Premier League points at Elland Road, 22 of 29 points, the highest proportion at home of any side in the division. Well done. Tottenham are winless across their last 7 Premier League games. Burnley are winless in their last 16 games. It is their worst run of form for 136 years. Having won 4 games in a row, it seems like if Manchester United keep this up, that guy's going to have to cut his hair next week. When it comes to DEFCON points, Caicedo leads the way with 20 actions, Lerma 19, Onana and Bruno and Mateus Fernandes 17. And then Ghana rounds up the top 5 with 16. Top transfers this week. Gyökeres, 180,000. With a double game week, it makes sense. Bruno Fernandes, 167,000. João Pedro, 146,000. Zubimendi, 135,000. Mbeumo, 134,000. Top players out. Wilson, 197,000. Thiago, 145,000. Saka, 114,000. Reece James, 103,000. Foden, 96,000 people have removed him. The highest points this week belong to Everton FC. They used their bench boost and they got 147 points, more than double what I got. In goal, Raya, 7 points. Gabriel, 6. Cucurella, 4. Dalot, 12. Rogers, 10. Mbeumo, 8. Bruno Fernandes, 10. Captain Palmer, 40 points. Dewsbury Hall, 13. João Pedro, 8. Haaland, 11. Dubravka, 1. Krupi Jr., 2. Hill, 7. Richards, 8. In our league, Stan Mider, manager of Dana, was the top point scatter with 90 points. Dubravka, 1. Timber, 6. Chalobah and Cucurella, 4 points apiece. Cunha, 3 points. Rogers, 10 points. Semenyo, 2 points. Captain Palmer, 40 points. Haaland, 11 points. Calvert-Lewin, 7 points. Krupi Jr., 2. That is a really great outcome. It's been a long time since somebody has gotten 90 in our group. The top 5, number 2, Ronchi Saka, Army Chief, and Joe Barraza and Reeve Massime all got 86 points. Shows you that there are many ways to get 86 points. The lowest points this week belong to Rashok Gailo, manager of Wu-Tang FC. They got 26 points. In goal, they had Leno, who got -1. Collins, 0. Munoz, 5. Milenkovic, 1. Mitoma, 2. Salah, 2. Semenyo, 2. Langa, 1. Gibbs, 2. Captain Raul, 10. Bowen, 2. That is quite a struggle. I just hope it gets better for you. Second from bottom is Murunga Manyara, 27 points. Ayodele Oladune and Nikola Mislenovic have 28 points. And fifth from bottom is Dennis Mutua, who got 32 points. Most points lost on the bench this week belongs to Usif Umar, who had a whopping 23 points on the bench. And on the bench, he had Rogers, who had 10 points. Lacroix, who had 11 points. And then Matikash, who had 2 points. And definitely could have done with some of those points, considering his midfield wasn't that great. Peter Kimani had 21 points on the bench. Colin Skogi, 20 as well, along with Haidar Yassin and Vibav Naik. And that is the top 5 of people with most points on the bench. The team with the most goal scorers belongs to Sadiq S. Suleiman, whose team had 6 goals. But he wasn't alone in this feat. Joel Andebe, Stan Midea, Theo Mikasi, Reeve Massime, Tim Modera also had 6 goal scorers. Stan Midea had the team with the best midfield, and his midfield delivered 55 points. I think that's the most we've spoken about so far. That's quite impressive. When it comes to defense, Red Hot Sesko, Army Chief, had a defense that gave them 41 points. Mike Mbugua made the most transfers this game week with 12 transfers. I know this is not going to reflect well. Valardo Harris, 5 transfers. Caleb Omondi, 5 transfers. Emmanuel Ogbogu, Gerald Juma, and Don Clinton made 4 transfers each. Don Clinton has been very impressive with his restraint. When it comes to the best transfer outcome, Reeve Masime got 28 points from the transfers made. Tomi Oladipo, well done to you. I know your team has been struggling. 19 points. Steve Kiarie, 18 points. Tanmi Dea and Yusufa, 17 points. And they've all done better this week. Keep it going, guys. When it comes to disappointing transfer outcomes, Mike's team, 36 points worse off than had he done nothing. Peter Kimani, 23 points worse off. Arnoldinho Arnold, 12 points worse off. Buana G, 11 points worse off. Gerald Juma, 11 points worse off. Onyango Mandela, 11 points worse off. And Architect Sadiq S. Suleiman, 11 points worse off than had they done nothing. When it comes to the team with the highest value, Suraj Baigane and Colin Skogi seems to be fighting with each other. Suraj Baigane is in the lead this time with 106.2. When it comes to the other end, Angulanayo Kijana Imama, 96.7, lowest team value. Highest change in team value belongs to Mark DeMarcos FC, along with Mark Mutegi, Dennis Aluberi, and Edmond Gadegi. They've all added 0.7 to their team value. When it comes to the worst change, Reeve Masime has lost 1.3. I've got a feeling Reeve Masime used their wild card. And I've just checked and I'm correct. When someone tends to lose that much, it's because of a wild card. And that accumulated value just goes poop. When it comes to our league and the top differential, without saying much, it's Cole Palmer. Only 9% of us own him and he returned 20 points. In second place is Ouattara, owned by 1% and returned 12 points. Oh, that is such a great return. Dalot in third, owned by 3%, 12 points. Gyökeres, owned by 4%, 12 points. And then Summeville, owned by 2% and gave us 11 points. Keep thinking out of the box, guys. This is the only way to start climbing up that table. Stan Midea, who got 90 points, has jumped most globally this week, jumping 800,000 places this week. On the other end, Nikola Mislenovic has dropped 1.2 million positions this week. When it comes to streak of green arrows, I can see Thagana has finally dropped off and Oti Omondi has now been doing the best. He has been doing well for 7 weeks in a row. Keep it up. When it comes to streak of red arrows, Walal Somali, Yusufa and Muhammad have been doing nothing for 8 weeks in a row. I have been there. I hope things change for you all. When it comes to our league, Ami Chief and Elin Joroge have jumped the highest positions this week. They have jumped by 21 positions each. When it comes to our league, Nikola Mislenovic has dropped 29 positions. When it comes to captain choices, Haaland was our most popular captain, but not by much this time. 64 people chose him as captain. 47 people chose Bruno Fernandes as captain. 22 chose João Pedro as captain. 8 people chose Mbumo as captain. Rice was chosen by 5 people as captain. I like that diversity. Saka was chosen by 5. Ekitike by 4. Palmer by 4. You 4 people, well done to you. Semenyo was chosen by 4. Gabriel was chosen by another 4. Bowen by 3. Salah by 3. Goodness, did you ever believe you'd ever see Salah being chosen by 3 people? Igor Thiago, 3. Gyökeres, 2. Tatiana Mislenovic, 2. Foden, 2. Voltemada, Calvert-Lewin, Hudson-Odoi, Gibbs-White, Pope, Cunha, Grealish, Cherki, Gakpo, Raul, Caicedo, Enzo, Evanilson, and Watkins, chosen by 1 manager each. We need to talk about this game week coming up. This coming weekend, will be an FA Cup weekend. But this midweek will be Premier League fixtures. And by this midweek, I mean tomorrow. There will be fixtures tomorrow. The game week starts tomorrow. And not only does it start tomorrow, it will see our first double game week. And it will see Arsenal playing twice. Once against Brentford and again against Wolves. And therefore, this also makes them favourite for captaincy. Now, the only question is, can you figure out who to captain? Now, the game week kicks off on Tuesday, tomorrow, with Chelsea taking on Leeds. The last time they met is when Leeds had sort of figured out how to stay up in the Premier League. I don't say they've figured it out, but they had figured out how not to be walkovers. And from that point on, it started their run, which has seen them improve to where they are today. Now, it was a different Chelsea manager, and honestly, even if Chelsea won 3-1, they were not quite impressive. 2 penalties from just stupid defending and a good goal. I'm not sure that they could have scored more. And so it makes me a bit apprehensive in this Leeds encounter. The last time they met, Bijol, Tanaka and Calvert-Lewin scored for Leeds while Neto scored for Chelsea. Calvert-Lewin, Okafor and Gruev are the players I would recommend from Leeds, just given their most recent performance. And from Chelsea, how can I not say Cole Palmer? And then possibly João Pedro and maybe Neto. Chelsea have won 4 of their last 5 games, losing 1, while Leeds have won 3, drawn 1 and lost 1. And both teams' losses have come at the hands of Arsenal. So basically both teams are in good form. And that should make this game a really great encounter in theory. I think both teams will score. I wouldn't bet against Leeds. They've already beaten Chelsea. I don't see why they can't do it again. Chelsea have a new manager and they have been performing well under him. There's no reason also not to think that Chelsea will win this game. I would just say, just believe in both teams to score. Everton take on Bournemouth. Bournemouth have won 4 out of the last 5 games they have played against them, but Everton won the most recent one, 1-0. And maybe one could say that the most recent one is the one with the new manager, with Moyes. So maybe it's a new trend and it will be Everton leading now. Both teams have the exact form. 3 draws and 2 wins in their last 5 matches. So I would say that's just mid-form. Nothing great, nothing bad. Everton won last time out while Bournemouth drew. If you're looking to take Everton players, I would say it just starts with Dewsbury Hall. Everton haven't really kept a clean sheet in their last 5 games. Maybe there's only 1 clean sheet, so it becomes tricky to recommend defenders. But if you have the defenders already, just keep the ones that you love. If it's Tarkowski, keep him. Mikalenko, Keane, O'Brien, just stay with the one that you like. But if I was to just choose one player, I would just say Dewsbury Hall and then maybe Barry. I really wouldn't be getting into 3 players. And on the Bournemouth end, I would say trust in the man they call Ryan. He seems to be quite an interesting player. His goal was it had a finish that you don't see commonly, and I really liked it. The goal he scored against Aston Villa. So if you are taking Bournemouth players, I would say Ryan, I would say Hill, and then try your luck with Evanilson. Tottenham take on Newcastle. Tottenham are in horrible form. Were beaten by Manchester United. Newcastle are not in great form either and were beaten by Brentford. Their head-to-head shows 2 draws and 3 wins for Newcastle. So Newcastle will be favoured in this tie. And honestly, that is also how I would go. Romero got a red card. So now their greatest threat from attack is missing. So you'll have to hope Van de Ven has his shooting boots. If you are going to go with Tottenham players, I would say Solanke has been looking like somebody that will do something. Xavi Simons has been showing signs of breaking through, and Van de Ven. If you are choosing Newcastle players, you just start with Guimaraes, and then you go to Botman, who scored. Maybe it'll be the start of a streak. and then you say Wisa. West Ham will take on Manchester United. Of course, as you know, Manchester United are the hottest team in England right now ever since Carrick took over, while West Ham have been quite impressive. They've figured out how to attack, and it has made them much more dangerous. They have won 4 of their last 5 games, just losing to Chelsea, and I think they have what it takes to stay up. If this form stays consistent, I think it will really be between Nottingham. Actually, it might just be Nottingham Forest because Leeds are also looking great. But also, anything can happen. But they're looking great. Their head-to-head has 1 draw, 2 wins for either side. In theory, that means any side could win, but on the ground, I think Manchester United are just too hot right now, and I think they will get their 5th win in a row. But should they not be able to do so, it will be because of Summeville and Bowen. And those are the first 2 players I would recommend. I would not recommend the West Ham defense because they have been scoring, unless you get Diouf because he has good crosses. On the other end, it's just a matter of trying to decide between Bruno, Cunha, Mbomo, and then maybe on the other end, Ahmad. And that's it. Aston Villa will take on Brighton. Now, the last match that these guys played was a thriller, which was 4-3, with Van Hecke scoring 2 goals, Paul Torres scoring an own goal, Daniel Malen, Onana, and Watkins scoring 2 goals. So there have been some good encounters. Now, whenever Aston Villa win this game, it is a high-scoring encounter. Listen to this. Aston Villa 4, Brighton 3. Aston Villa 3, Brighton 0. Aston Villa 6, Brighton 1. And then when Brighton have won, it's 1-1. And then the other score that is there is just 2-2. So if you believe Aston Villa will score, the odds are that they will score at least 3 goals. So if you're a gambling person, just say over 3.0. Now, if you're going to choose players from Aston Villa, Rodgers has been in great form. I would say Buendia and Watkins, given the scorers of the last encounter. Now, if you're a Brighton person, I would say this game seems like there will be goals, so don't, unless you believe Van Hecke will score again, don't have him. Have, I guess, Pascal Gross, Ruta, Mitoma. Welbeck hasn't been starting of late, so I wouldn't recommend him. Crystal Palace versus Burnley. Crystal Palace had a good victory over the weekend, and we'll be looking to build up on that. Burnley have been horrible, and for that reason, I would be betting against them now. I think they are the absolute whipping boys. Wolves are even better than them in terms of recent form. If you're choosing Crystal Palace players, I would say Munoz, Ismail Assar, and maybe Strand Larsen, since Mateta is out injured. On the Burnley end, if somehow you want to choose them, I would say Fleming, Marcus Edwards, and Kyle Walker. Manchester City take on Fulham. And if you remember the last time these guys met, it was a thrilling 5-4 game. And it looked like such a walkover at the beginning, and then it ended up being this ridiculous game. And that was when everybody started to believe Foden was now Kevin De Bruyne 2.0 and he was going to have a great season. And he had a run of like 4 games where he gave returns, and then after that he went dry. Did he even play in the game yesterday? I don't even remember seeing him on the pitch. Basically, he's fallen off. But this is one of the games that made you think that Foden is the next best thing since sliced bread. Anyway, Haaland scored, Reinders scored, Foden scored, and Sanderberger had an own goal. Smith Rowe scored, Chukwueze came on with the fire of the heavens and scored 2 goals, and Iwobi had a goal. Now, while I am hoping for such a game, I doubt it will be that interesting. Now, Manchester City have won all of their previous encounters against Fulham. So even though it will be entertaining, I still believe Manchester City will win this game. Haaland, Reinders, and maybe Semenyo this time to score. And for the last one, I'll just say, and for Fulham, I'll just say Chukwueze, Raul Jimenez, and Harry Wilson. Those are the 3 players I'd recommend. I wouldn't go into the defense for either team in this encounter. Nottingham Forest versus Wolves. This is a very important game for Nottingham Forest. They absolutely need to win, especially after losing to Leeds. They'll be hoping Leeds are beaten by Chelsea, and they'll be hoping to take advantage of this fixture. If you believe in Nottingham Forest, Igor Jesus, Gibbs White, and maybe Anderson would be your best bets. Now, Wolves have a double game week. The problem is that it's Wolves that has a double game week, and they are not a team to bet twice on unless you want to get 4 points, And however, should you believe that they will score, I honestly believe you only have two options. Either Arokodare or Tolu or Mane. Those are the only two players worth bringing in to gamble on, because they play Forest, which is a winnable game for them since they're in a similar position, but then I don't expect them to do anything against Arsenal. I won't even go to the head-to-heads because for this team and this particular matchup, it doesn't make any sense in my view. Different managers, different situations. It's honestly looking like it'll be a bloodbath. And if you pick the right players for Wolves, I think they could get something in this game. Sunderland take on Liverpool. And Sunderland take on Liverpool at home. Now, the last time they played, Talby scored for Sunderland and Mukiele had an own goal. And it was a late own goal. Now, Sunderland have been a great side at home. They were beaten away from home this weekend by Arsenal 3-0, very convincing. They had chances, but it seems like they only know how to take chances at home. Should you believe that this kind of form will continue, Brobby should be at the top of your list. And then Mukiele, he tends to have assists. And then Diarra or Talby. Talby scored last time, he might score again. So let me go Talby. On the Liverpool end, they're coming off a difficult defeat. And they won't have Soboslai in this game because of the red card he received. So Ekitike, Verts, and maybe Gakpo. Those are the three people I would recommend. I think this game has a minimum of 1-1 in it. And so I think it'll be not worthwhile getting into defense unless the defenders will pass. Both teams have been encouraging in their form of late, and it just means that, in my view, it could go either way. I think Sunderland are tough to beat because they will be at home and they just have incredible spirit at home, and that will be the X factor in this encounter. I do believe Liverpool are the better team, but just that home factor that Sunderland has makes them very tough to beat. In fact, it's so ridiculous that if Sunderland are beaten, it'll be their first loss at home this season. Thursday, we'll see Arsenal take on Brentford. Now, the last time they played, Arsenal beat them 2-0 with Merino and Saka scoring the goals. Outside that, it tends to be, let me just tell the scores. They won 2-0, then they drew 1-1, then Arsenal beat them 3-1, then beat them 2-1 and beat them 1-0. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, it seems like more often than not in this encounter, Arsenal tend to get a goal scored against them by Brentford. Meaning that for example, I want to triple captain Gabriel or Timber because those are the two defenders I have. But as I look at these results, I am seeing that they do concede against Brentford. So that will be something interesting to look out for. Unless you hope that Gabriel is the one who will be scoring for you. Now, Arteta has been doing some roulette BS, which has made choosing Arsenal attackers quite tricky. However, I think Madueke has been playing well of late, and Trossard. But will they start? He might decide it's Eze, or who knows what. Or maybe Saka might just come back and now he's back. I don't know. It's such a risk. I personally am just going with stability. And for me, stability means I know Gabriel will start. I know Timber will start. I know Rice will start. Now, if you don't have those three, apparently I've had those three since I used my wildcard like 3 weeks ago. But if I didn't have those three, instead of Rice, I'd have Zubimendi because he has scored 2 goals in the last 2 games. It might be 3. He might be on his Summeville run. Going up, it's a bit of a gamble because you don't know who will play. If you're choosing Brentford players, this is actually quite easy. You go Thiago, Ouattara, and Jensen. or Janelt, whichever one you prefer. So that will be on Thursday the 12th. And then you have to go until the next week on the 18th. Can you believe that? On the 18th, next week, Wednesday, for this game week to end. Because there'll be FA Cup in between, and then Wolves will play Arsenal. So now the problem is, Arsenal are playing in the FA Cup. They could get an injury. But at this point, you're just gambling. So you're just going to hope that everybody is fine, and the three that you've chosen will be the three that you choose to play against Wolves. So I'm going to be hoping for a clean sheet. Now, Arsenal have the better record against Wolves, as you can imagine. They've won their last 5 encounters against them, and in 3 of those 5, they've gotten clean sheets. So I am hoping that that record continues, and I am hoping that my choice of an Arsenal defense captain will work out in my favor in both matches. I had said for Wolves, Tolu and Mane are the best bets for returns. And on Arsenal, your 2 defenders, or even 3, depending on how you want to play it, and your choice of Zubimendi or Rice might get you DEFCON points at least. And if you choose the right forwards, it could, because Gyökeres could score, Gabriel could score, Gabriel Jesus, Gabriel Martinelli, Trossard, Kai Havertz, Madueke. I mean, Madueke loves Wolves, as you remember. So it's really up to you, and just hope that the roulette works in your favor. So yeah, that's how the fixtures are, and that's how the double game week will end. When it comes to captain choices, honestly, you just have to gamble this with Arsenal. With the player playing twice, whoever you believe will play twice. Do you think Gyökeres will play twice? Put him as your captain. Do you believe Gabriel will play twice and maybe keep 2 clean sheets or maybe even score from corners? Make him your captain. I think Arsenal defense has to be doubled up at the very least, if not tripled. And if you're going to triple up, that's where your captain will come from. Would I choose a Wolves captain? If I was a gambler, I would take Tolu as a captain. In the Chelsea versus Leeds game, I could see Dominic Calvert-Lewin being a good captain. Palmer, of course, after his hat-trick, how can you bet against that? Everton versus Bournemouth, no captain. Spurs versus Newcastle, maybe Bruno Guimaraes. West Ham versus Man United, honestly, Summeville would be a good captain. Then you have Bruno Fernandes, Mbeumo or Cunha. Aston Villa versus Brighton, maybe Morgan Rogers. Crystal Palace versus Burnley, Sarr could be a good captain choice. Man City versus Fulham, Chukwueze could be a great captain. Haaland could be another one. Rangers could be another one. Semenyo could be another one. Forest versus Wolves, Tolu is a potential captain here. Forest, Igor Jesus or Morgan Gibbs-White. Sunderland versus Liverpool. Out of all these matches, I don't think I would bet against Sunderland. Brentford versus Arsenal. Whoever you choose is the right captain for Arsenal, rather. And then Brentford, you've got Ouattara or Thiago. But Arsenal, you've got the defenders or the attackers. The one you choose is the correct one. Now, looking at number 1 in the world, it belongs to Matty C's 5'3s. They got 71 points this week. In goal, they had Raya, who had 7, Gabriel, who had 6, Tarkowski, who had 2, Thiago, who had 1. Captained Bruno Fernandes, who got 20, Enzo got 2, Wilson got 2, Mbeumo got 8. So he's doubling up on Manchester United. Probably will be doubling or tripling up on Arsenal this week. Thiago got 5, Calvert-Lewin got 7, Haaland had 10. And on the bench he had Rodgers, who had 10, so that was painful for him. That's how he got 71 points. He has 1659 points. When it comes to the FPL FDR, Arsenal have Brentford, Wolves, Tottenham, Chelsea, Brighton. So it seems like they will be having a bit more difficult encounters after the Tottenham game. I'm not counting Tottenham as a difficult game. Aston Villa have Brighton, Leeds, Wolves, Chelsea, and Man United. Those are interesting fixtures. I wouldn't blame you if you got into Villa right now. Bournemouth have Everton, West Ham, Sunderland, Brentford, and Burnley. They can be competitive in all of these fixtures. And if you want to gamble on Ryan, this is a time. Brentford have Arsenal, then Brighton, Burnley, Bournemouth, and Wolves. It's a mixed bag, but generally favourable fixtures. Brighton have Aston Villa, Brentford, Forest, Arsenal, and Sunderland. Those are not bad fixtures. The only problem with Brighton right now is trying to figure out who is the right person to have. They're kind of like Bournemouth, where the right person to have keeps changing. Burnley have Crystal Palace, Chelsea, Brentford, Everton, and Bournemouth. The problem with them is that they're in horrible form right now, and even if these fixtures are not too bad, I would bet against Burnley. Chelsea have Leeds, Burnley, Arsenal, Aston Villa, and Newcastle. So after the Burnley game, their fixtures become a bit more difficult, and I will be moving off of their players after the Burnley encounter. Crystal Palace have Burnley, Wolves, Man United, Tottenham, and Leeds. 3 out of the 5 fixtures are not bad, and this might get things right or back on track for them. Everton have Bournemouth, Man United, Newcastle, Burnley, and Arsenal. Now, with Everton, you just never know. They are 7th on the table right now. They're having a good season. So, you just never know what you're going to get with them. Fulham have Man City, Sunderland, Tottenham, West Ham, and Forest. Now, the Man City game will be the most difficult game here. And then they have to play Sunderland at Sunderland's home. So that might be difficult. Actually, these games are tricky because Man City will be difficult. Sunderland at Sunderland's home will be difficult. Tottenham might be their easiest game. And then you have West Ham, who are in good form. And then Nottingham Forest. Yeah, and that could go either way. So just be careful, I guess. Leeds have Chelsea, Aston Villa, Man City, Sunderland, and Crystal Palace. I honestly wouldn't get into Leeds players right now, having looked at those fixtures. But they're not a bad team. They could spoil the parties for some of these teams. Liverpool have Sunderland, Forest, West Ham, Wolves, and Tottenham. Oh, wow. It might be time to get into Verts and Ekitike. Interesting. Man City have Fulham, Newcastle, Leeds, Nottingham Forest, and West Ham. Honestly, I see 5 victories for them. Man United have West Ham, Everton, Crystal Palace, Newcastle, and Aston Villa. So the games become increasingly difficult, but they've played much more difficult teams in their last 5 games. So this is nothing. If anything, this is an easier 5 games. So I'm just going to trust Manchester United, and I would just, until they lose, run with them. Newcastle have Spurs, Man City, Everton, Man United, and Chelsea. I would avoid Newcastle right now. Forest have Wolves, well, unless you're getting Bruno Guimaraes, since he will get the penalties. Spurs have Newcastle, Arsenal, Fulham, Crystal Palace, and Liverpool. Just avoid Spurs. Just avoid them. Sunderland have Liverpool, Fulham, Bournemouth, Leeds, and Brighton. The problem with Sunderland is that they can beat absolutely anybody. So just stay with the players that you have. West Ham have Man United, Bournemouth, Liverpool, Fulham, and Man City. Wow. So they have a really tough set of fixtures. If you're not already in West Ham, I wouldn't encourage you to get into them, at least until after the Man City game. Wolves have Nottingham Forest, Arsenal, Crystal Palace, Aston Villa, and Liverpool. Now, Wolves have been the relegation favourites this season, and I don't see a reason why that would change. So do not get into them. I know it's a double game week. I still wouldn't encourage it because their fixtures are difficult. And with that, we've come to the end of the podcast. I want you to remember that the game week starts tomorrow. FA Cup is this weekend. The Premier League fixture, Game Week 26, starts tomorrow. Apart from that, I hope you have a good Monday. See you on the pitch. Bye.